Welcome to the deep dive. If you're joining us today, you're probably a fellow curious mind, someone who loves to explore the edges of what we know. And today we're venturing into a truly fascinating intersection.
We really are.
We're looking at ancient spirituality, modern technology, and, of all things, cabbage.
Yeah, cabbage.
Yes, you heard that correctly. We are going to connect the profound depths of human consciousness with the produce aisle of your local grocery store.
It sounds wild, I know.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're embarking on a deep dive today into a highly specific and, frankly, eye-opening set of source materials.
Right.
Today's journey is sourced entirely from the detailed transcripts and the teachings of Osman, who is widely known as the blind Muslim yogi.
A fascinating figure.
Completely.
Yeah.
And our mission today is crystal clear. We want to explore Osman's unique 21st century adaptations of ancient yoga.
And we're going to uncover his deeply surprising theory about your daily screen time.
Yes, how your smartphone relates to mass spiritual awakenings. Plus, we're going to decode his highly practical, accessible dietary solution for the modern, evolving body.
Which is where the cabbage comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But before we get to the cabbage and the smartphones, we really need to understand the man behind these theories.
Because when you hear claims like the ones we're about to discuss, you naturally want to know, well, who is making them?
Right, you need that context. So let's lay the groundwork for Osman's credibility, his background, and exactly why his voice carries so much weight in the space.
It is a pleasure to be here, by the way, and this is indeed a profoundly layered subject.
Absolutely.
What's fascinating here is the sheer breadth and depth of Osman's background. We are not talking about someone who just picked up a casual meditation practice a few years ago.
Or went on a weekend retreat and suddenly started teaching.
Exactly. Osman, the blind Muslim yogi, is a master-level bioenergy healer.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Sure.
Because his specialization is particularly unique and, frankly, quite intense.
It is. He focuses on the telepathic transference of energy healing.
I want to jump in here because telepathic transference of energy healing is a massive phrase.
It's a lot to take in.
I imagine some of you listening right now might have just raised an eyebrow.
Yeah.
I know my brain immediately goes to science fiction when I hear the word telepathic.
Right. People picture mind reading.
Yeah, X-Men stuff. How do we actually ground that concept? What does it mean in the context of his work?
That is a completely fair reaction. To put it in the simplest terms, or kind of an explain it like I'm five framework,
Please do.
think about how modern physics understands the universe. We used to think of the world as just solid objects bumping into each other.
Newtonian physics.
Exactly. But at the quantum level, scientists talk about entanglement.
Right, quantum entanglement.
The idea that two particles can be deeply connected, so whatever happens to one instantly affects the other, regardless of the physical distance between them.
Even if they're light years apart.
Precisely. Bioenergy healing operates on a similar philosophical and energetic framework. Osman isn't talking about reading someone's mind to find out their bank PI.
Thank goodness.
Right. He is talking about tapping into a fundamental energetic layer of reality where physical proximity just isn't the primary barrier.
So he's projecting healing energy.
He is projecting focused healing energy to a subject's energetic field. And his work is not focused on minor everyday ailments, by the way.
No, the sources say he specializes in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses.
Alongside a host of other physiological, psychological, and spiritual ailments.
Of course, an immense level of concentration.
An unbelievable amount. Energetic cultivation at that level is exactly why his half-century of practice is the necessary context for this capability.
50 years of practice.
Nearly 50 years of practice under his belt, and 46 years of teaching experience in yoga and meditation.
That makes it much more tangible for me. It's less about magic and more about, I guess, utilizing an underlying architecture of the universe that most of us are just completely untrained to access.
That's a great way to phrase it.
And speaking of training, his education wasn't just in one specific esoteric silo. The sources outline a deeply global education.
Exactly. He studied extensively under masters from the Far East, the Middle East, and the West.
So he didn't confine himself to a single dogma.
Not at all. But what is truly crucial for our discussion today, and what sets him apart from many traditional mystics, is that his education notably includes study within scientific communities.
He brings a rigorous empirical lens to these esoteric practices.
He really does. He hasn't just memorized ancient texts. He's spent his lifetime tirelessly trying to decode them, testing them, and refining them.
Which is why he refers to it as a scientific approach.
Yes. His stated goal has been to adapt these ancient protocols for the 21st century, to make them faster, easier, and inherently results-oriented.
He's trying to bridge the gap between ancient, lost sciences and the desperate needs of current society.
Precisely.
I think that scientific lens is what makes this deep dive so compelling for you, the listener. We aren't just talking about abstract philosophy here.
No, we are talking about a methodology designed for the modern world.
And the sources note that to achieve this level of mastery, his dedication was absolute, like borderline superhuman.
Oh, absolutely. He has engaged in intensive, rigorous practice extending up to 18 hours a day in certain stages of his life.
18 hours a day.
Consider the physical and mental endurance that requires. 18 hours a day of focused practice is a complete rewiring of the human nervous system.
It's unfathomable for most of us.
And even currently, according to the materials, he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day.
Which he describes simply as sharpening the sword.
Yeah, just everyday maintenance for him. This relentless daily conditioning is exactly why he's developed this uncommon ability to heal on very serious levels with such high success rates.
It's not a gift that was simply handed to him magically.
No, it is a capability forged through decades of extreme discipline. And because of the intensity and the high success rates of this specialized telepathic bioenergy work, his treatment and consultation fees are premium priced.
Which makes total sense. If you are dealing with critical care recovery, you are engaging with a highly specialized service.
Exactly.
But, and this is a massive distinction that the sources make very clear, while his specialized energy healing is a paid service, he is deeply committed to accessibility when it comes to his general spiritual teachings.
This is a vital point.
He offers his spiritual knowledge, his yoga, and his advanced meditation teachings completely for free.
Yes, the democratization of this knowledge is central to his mission. He has students in over 100 countries.
And he's got a YouTube channel with extensive advice, plus his website.
Right, yogawellness786.com. And he has a specifically designed 5-minute program available there.
Think about that for a moment. Someone who has practiced for 18 hours a day has distilled a foundational practice down to 5 minutes.
So that a busy modern person can actually begin to engage with it.
He doesn't require his followers to fly across the world or attend expensive, exclusive weekend retreats to learn the basics of spiritual hygiene.
He brings the practice right into the comfort and safety of the home. You can find all this relevant information for free without needing to engage any of his paid services.
I find that incredibly refreshing. It builds a lot of trust right off the bat.
It really does.
He clearly separates his premium medical adjacent healing work from his spiritual guidance. You can access the wisdom without a paywall.
Exactly.
But it also raises a question. Why is there such a desperate need for this 5-minute program today?
A great question.
Why is he reaching people in over 100 countries? What is going on with the modern population that requires a master yogi to step in with 21st century adaptations?
Well,
And this brings us to what I consider the most provocative part of the source material. It is a concept that is going to make you look at your smartphone, your laptop, and your daily routine completely differently.
it's a radical reframing of our current cultural moment. If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the general consensus in the spiritual community, the assumption is that being awake or experiencing enlightenment is incredibly rare,
Right, it's reserved for the monks.
reserved for the dedicated few who spend their lives meditating in isolation in a cave somewhere.
Yeah.
Osman challenges this fallacy head-on. He asserts that right now, in the modern world, over 80 to 90% of people are actually experiencing a Kundalini awakening.
80 to 90%.
Yes.
That is practically everyone listening to this right now.
Almost everyone you know.
But a Kundalini awakening, historically, is this massive, profound, energetic surge that yogis spend decades preparing their bodies to handle.
Decades of that 18-hour-a-day practice we just talked about.
How on earth are 80 to 90% of everyday people triggering this? It can't be because we all suddenly took up chanting.
It isn't. And this is the brilliant, almost paradoxical insight Osman provides. The trigger is our screen time in our modern work habits.
Like, really?
Yes. He points out that spending 8 to 12 hours a day intensely focused on TikTok, YouTube, reading articles, or deeply focusing on an 8-hour work task, it acts as a modern form of single-pointed mindfulness meditation.
Okay, let's break that down because I can hear the skepticism from here.
I get it.
Doom scrolling on TikTok or grinding through an Excel spreadsheet is the exact opposite of what we think of as mindfulness.
Usually people think mindfulness is about being present, feeling your breath, listening to the birds.
Right. Screen time feels like checking out, not tuning in.
It feels like checking out of your physical environment, yes. But let's look at the mechanics of what the mind is actually doing.
Okay.
In traditional yogic practices, there is a technique called trataka.
Truthkaka.
Yes, which involves staring fixedly at a single point, like a candle flame or a black dot on a wall without blinking.
Just unblinking focus.
The goal is to force the mind into a state of unwavering focus, completely pulling the practitioner's awareness away from their personal problems, their ego, and their immediate physical discomfort.
Wow.
Now look at a modern office worker or a teenager on a smartphone.
They're staring at a glowing rectangle for hours.
Exactly. Their visual field is narrowed. Their entire cognitive load is directed at that screen.
They forget they are hungry.
They forget they are sitting in a chair. They forget their immediate personal anxieties for the duration of that scrolling session. They have achieved an incredibly intense, sustained, single-pointed focus.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you frame it like that, it is undeniably a form of trance.
We literally call it being glued to the screen.
We are accidentally mimicking the mechanics of ancient meditation.
Precisely. We are doing it clumsily, and we're doing it with terrible posture.
The worst posture.
But energetically, the mechanism is the same. By taking the mind away from personal problems and focusing intensely on a screen or a task, society is inadvertently triggering these massive energetic shifts.
So what actually happens during this shift?
In yogic terms, the Kundalini energy, which is typically described as resting dormant at the base of the spine, is awakened by this intense focus. It finds a gap in the mental chatter and begins to surge upward.
Just forces its way up.
But here is the critical problem. Because this is an involuntary awakening, the person hasn't done the decades of physical and nervous system preparation that a traditional yogi would do.
So the energy wakes up, tries to move through the body, and hits a massive amount of friction.
A ton of friction.
Because the plumbing, the nervous system just isn't built to handle that kind of voltage.
Exactly. The infrastructure isn't there. And this friction manifests in very specific, culturally pervasive ways.
Symptoms.
Right. Osman outlines the symptoms of this mass accidental awakening, and they read like a diagnosis of the modern human condition.
Let's go through them.
First, there is a deep, unshakable dissatisfaction with life. Even if things are materially fine, there is a hollow feeling. Second, there is a desperate search for greater purpose. Third, a widespread questioning of traditional religions and a demand for deep authenticity.
People are no longer satisfied with dogma.
Exactly. They want direct experience.
I want you, the listener, to really sit with that for a second. Have you felt that strange underlying dissatisfaction? Have you caught yourself staring out the window after a long day of intense digital focus, wondering what the actual point of all this is?
I think we all have.
Osman is suggesting that you aren't just burned out from the daily grind, you are energetically waking up. And he even links this to our rapid technological advancement, right?
He does. He suggests that because human consciousness is literally evolving and moving faster due to this energetic surge, our technological output is reflecting that exponential acceleration.
It's all connected.
But the collateral damage of this unprepared surge is severe because the energy is forcing its way through blocked, unprepared systems. It creates havoc.
It's not a peaceful process.
Not at all. Osman points to this as the root cause of the massive global rise in stress, anxiety, depression, psychosomatic disorders, and unexplained physical ailments.
The energy gets trapped.
It gets trapped, it spins, and it manifests as physical and psychological distress.
This makes so much sense of the current mental health landscape. We often treat these modern anxieties as purely psychological or just a reaction to a chaotic world.
Right, like we're just bad at coping.
But Osman is saying it is actually biological and energetic. Your body is running a software update that your hardware cannot support.
That is a perfect analogy.
And that brings us to the next massive piece of this puzzle, which is how we fuel that hardware. Because if you are going through a mass Kundalini awakening, your body's energetic demands are going through the roof.
This is where Osman's teachings transition from the philosophical to the highly practical.
Okay.
He argues that because these mass Kundalini awakenings require massive amounts of biological energy, the modern body can no longer tolerate poor nutrition.
We can't eat garbage anymore.
Exactly. And he points out a fascinating historical anomaly to illustrate this. He asks us to look back 50 years.
Okay, the 1970s.
50 years ago, people ate refined carbs all the time. They ate massive plates of pasta, thick cuts of bread, pastries, and yet the population remained largely slim.
That's true.
There wasn't this epidemic of chronic illness and obesity that we see today.
That is always the great mystery, isn't it? You look at photos from the 70s and everyone looks relatively fit despite eating white bread every day.
Right.
The usual explanation is that they walked more or the food was less processed. But Osman has a different theory.
He attributes it directly to the shift in the human energetic frequency.
How so?
50 years ago, the collective kundalini wasn't awake in 80 to 90% of the population. The body operated on a lower, slower frequency and could therefore process that kind of heavy, slower-moving fuel.
It could handle the carbs.
But today, because the energy is awake and surging, the body's new energetic frequency violently rejects what he calls blank carbs and blank nutrition.
The engine is running too hot and too fast to process cheap, dirty fuel.
Exactly.
So what exactly constitutes this cheap, dirty fuel? Osman introduces a dietary villain categorized by a mnemonic he learned from a nutrition professor.
Right.
It is incredibly simple to remember, but brutally hard to execute. The rule is avoid GPS.
GPS. That stands for grains, potatoes, and sugar. These are the primary culprits in his framework.
Let's break down why.
Potatoes and sugar cause massive starch and sugar hits. They flood the bloodstream, spike insulin, and create massive energetic crashes.
High highs and low lows.
Exactly. They provide a fleeting burst of cheap energy followed by lethargy. But the really controversial one for a lot of people is the G grains.
Right, because grains form the base of almost every global diet. You're talking about rice, wheat flour, cake flour, all breads, pasta, pastries.
All of it.
Why are grains suddenly the enemy of the awakened modern human?
Osman is clear that grains are highly inflammatory. When the body consumes them, it triggers an inflammatory response. Now, remember what we just discussed about the nervous system being under massive strain from the involuntary kundalini awakening. The energy is already causing friction and stress.
So your system is already maxed out.
Yes. If you add systemic inflammation from grains on top of that, the body's resources are completely overwhelmed.
That makes biological sense.
According to Osman, this dietary inflammation directly worsens the mental health symptoms of the awakening. The depression, the anxiety, the intense stress. These aren't just energetic symptoms anymore. They are biologically amplified by the food you are eating.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
Humans have been cultivating and surviving on grains and potatoes for thousands of years. Entire civilizations were built on wheat and rice.
Absolutely true.
It is hard to swallow that they are suddenly toxic to us. Is it the processing, or is it literally just the new energetic state of humanity?
According to the source material, it is the interaction between the food and the new energetic state. Yes, civilizations were built on grains, but those civilizations were operating at a different baseline frequency.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Think of it like a vehicle. If you have an old, heavy tractor, you can run it on low-grade diesel, and it chugs along fine.
Right.
But if you suddenly upgrade the engine to a high-performance Formula One motor, which is essentially what this mass Kundalini awakening is doing to our nervous systems, and you try to put that same low-grade diesel into it, the engine will knock, misfire, and eventually break down.
The fuel didn't change, the engine's requirements changed.
Exactly. The high-frequency state requires highly conductive, nutrient-dense fuel, free of the static caused by inflammation.
That is a brilliant analogy. The Formula One engine requires premium fuel. But here is the massive roadblock for you and me.
The reality of eating this way.
Avoiding GPS grains, potatoes, and sugar long-term is incredibly difficult. It is one thing to do a strict keto or paleo diet for a month to lose a few pounds.
Sure, anyone can do it for a month.
But to do it is a lifelong necessity to manage a spiritual awakening. That requires either ironclad willpower or a massive grocery budget.
It usually does.
Because if you cut out rice, bread, and pasta, what is left to fill you up? Usually it's expensive alternative flours, high-end keto breads, and massive amounts of organic meat.
And Osman is deeply aware of this. This is where his pragmatism really shines. He knows that he is speaking to a global audience, many of whom cannot afford expensive specialty diets.
Wayne needs a real-world fix.
He needed a solution that was universally accessible, budget-friendly, and biologically potent enough to replace the volume and satisfaction of grains without the inflammatory spike.
And his ultimate solution is almost shockingly simple. Cabbage.
Cab.
The humblest, cheapest vegetable in the produce aisle. When I first read that in the sources, I actually laughed. It seems too simple.
I had the exact same reaction.
But the more you look at his methodology, the more brilliant it becomes.
Yeah.
He uses cabbage as a direct one-to-one replacement for the heavy inflammatory grains.
Yes, but the preparation is key here. You can't just boil it to a mush and expect it to be satisfying or highly nutritious.
Nobody wants boiled cabbage.
Exactly. Osman outlines a very specific preparation method to make it palatable, satisfying, and bioavailable. First, you chop it up, then you lightly steam it. He emphasizes that you must keep it crunchy.
Crunchy is the key word.
This is vital for two reasons. It maintains the structural integrity of the nutrients, and it provides the satisfying bite that you usually get from a good al dente pasta or a hearty grain.
Texture is huge when you are replacing a comfort food. If it's mushy, you are going to crave the bread.
Without a doubt.
So you lightly steam it, keep it crunchy, and add salt. But then comes the flavor profile, which is where it gets really interesting and highly functional.
He suggests adding cinnamon powder, mustard seeds, turmeric, and a crucial pinch of black pepper.
And the pepper is doing heavy lifting.
He explicitly notes that the black pepper is not just there for the taste. It is there to perform a specific biochemical function to release the curcumin in the turmeric.
I love that he includes this detail because it shows how his ancient yogic protocols are deeply intertwined with modern nutritional science.
They're completely aligned.
Curcumin is the active compound in turmeric, and it is a massive anti-inflammatory. It's perfect for combating the inflammation we just talked about.
Right.
But curcumin by itself has terrible bioavailability. The human body struggles to absorb it. However, piperine, the active compound in black pepper, inhibits certain digestive enzymes in the liver.
So it sneaks it past the body's defenses.
Exactly. Adding just a pinch of black pepper increases the body's absorption of curcumin by something like 2,000%. It's a biological hack, and he builds it right into the recipe.
It is functional medicine applied to everyday cooking. You can also add herbs like parsley, thyme, and mint for variety.
So you make it taste good.
Once you have the spiced, crunchy, bioactive cabbage prepared, the serving method is simple. You pile it on a plate exactly like you would a mound of spaghetti or a bowl of rice.
Let's use it as the base.
Then you top it. You can use lentil soup, mixed vegetables, a protein of your choice, or a homemade tomato and chili sauce.
It acts as the bulk, the texture, and the vehicle for your sauces.
Completely bypassing the inflammatory GPS crash.
And the scientific backing for prioritizing cabbage is rock solid within the source materials. Osman specifically cites the work of two prominent doctors to validate this approach.
Yes, he does.
First, he points to Dr. Michael Greger's extensive work highlighting the massive, unmatched nutritional value of cruciferous vegetables. Cabbage isn't just empty water. It is packed with phytochemicals.
Yes, and the second citation is even more profound. Osman cites Dr. Brooke Goldner, who runs the website goodbyelupus.com.
Goodbyelupus.com.
Dr. Goldner utilizes a very specific hypernutrition protocol based around green smoothies. These smoothies are made by blending raw, cruciferous vegetables like cabbage with flax seeds, water, and a little fruit for flavor.
Just a powerhouse of raw nutrition.
The source material notes that Dr. Goldner has documented thousands of cases where flooding the body with this extreme level of raw, cruciferous nutrition kick-started the immune system so powerfully that patients were able to overcome severe chronic illnesses.
This raises an important question, though. When we start talking about curing illnesses with cabbage and smoothies, we tread into tricky territory regarding medical advice.
We do.
How does Osman balance this intense nutritional protocol with standard medical intervention?
He is exceptionally clear and responsible on this point. Osman states definitively that his teachings and this dietary protocol are complementary. They are not a replacement for medical treatment.
If you are sick, you see a doctor.
If you are sick, you see a doctor. But what he is offering is the added edge. If your body is fighting an illness, or if it is struggling under the weight of a massive energetic Kundalini awakening, standard medicine might treat the symptoms. But this hypernutrition gives the body the raw materials it desperately needs to heal and process the energetic load at a cellular level.
That distinction is so critical. And let's look at the economics of this again, because it is so vital to this mission of accessibility.
It's the best part.
In almost every country in the world, cabbage is incredibly cheap. You can buy double, triple, or sometimes 10 times the volume of cabbage compared to trendier vegetables like kale, broccoli, or cauliflower for a fraction of the price.
It's the ultimate budget superfood.
It makes high-level functional nutrition available to people on the tightest budgets. You don't need a trust fund to survive a spiritual awakening.
Exactly. It democratizes wellness. Imagine the physiological shift of swapping out your dinner. Instead of a heavy tamazic bowl of pasta that leaves you lethargic and inflamed,
Which, in yogic terms, pulls your energy down into darkness and ignorance.
you eat a massive, heavily spiced, crunchy cabbage base topped with a rich chili. You get the physical satisfaction of a full stomach, you get the psychological satisfaction of a complex flavor profile, but your energetic channels remain clear.
You are feeding the kundalini fire instead of suffocating it with wet logs.
Beautifully said.
Feeding the fire. That is the perfect transition to the next major component of Osman's protocol, because it isn't just about what you eat, it's about how often you eat.
This is a huge shift in perspective.
This completely upends a lot of assumptions people have about spiritual masters. There is this persistent myth of the starving yogi in the cave surviving on a single grain of rice a day, completely detached from the physical body.
We all have that image in our heads.
Osman says that is a recipe for disaster in the modern context.
He warns, in very stark terms, that neglecting your diet during a spiritual awakening will make you physically ill.
The energy will basically eat you alive.
The Kundalini energy is demanding. It is an evolutionary force surging through your biology, and it burns calories and energetic reserves at an astonishing rate. If you try to starve it, it will cannibalize your own system.
So what's the alternative?
He advises that you must eat frequently. He recommends eating every 2 to 3 hours or in regular intervals throughout the day. And crucially, he says you must eat until you are satiated. There is no caloric restriction here.
To really understand this, the sources provide a breakdown of Osman's personal daily routine. And let me tell you, a day in the dietary life of this yogi is intense.
It really highlights his commitment.
It shows exactly how much fuel a master-level bioenergy healer requires. His day begins at 2 a.m.
Yes, he wakes up at 2 in the morning to practice and to create content for his teachings, and he immediately starts fueling.
Right away.
At 2 a.m., he eats fruit, specifically a nectarine or an apple, and raw, unsalted peanuts.
That is a very calculated choice.
It is. Peanuts are nutrient-dense, they provide healthy fats and around 26 grams of protein. This combination gives him immediate energy from the fruit sugars and sustainable slow-release energy from the protein and fat in the peanuts.
Starting the day at 2 a.m. completely shifts the biological clock. I know that in ancient yogic traditions, the hours just before dawn are considered the most auspicious for meditation when the world is quiet.
Yes, the Brahma Muhurta.
But to sustain that output for hours before the sun even comes up, that peanut snacking must be vital. Then around 8:30 a.m., he has what we would call breakfast.
Right. And for breakfast, he utilizes that Dr. Brooke Goldner-style protocol we discussed earlier. He has a green smoothie made of raw cabbage, flax seeds, and a little fruit blended with water.
So he's drinking cabbage now, too.
Yes. This floods his system with hydration, fiber, and raw cruciferous phytochemicals right at the start of his physical day.
Then we move to mid-morning, which serves as his main meal. This is where the cabbage replacement truly comes into play. He has a massive plate of that lightly steamed, spiced, crunchy cabbage, acting as the base for a hearty lentil soup or a mix of other vegetables.
And in the evening, he repeats this. Another plate of spiced cabbage.
It's a lot of cabbage.
It is. And throughout the entire day, between these meals, he snacks. He takes 3 to 5 mouthfuls of raw peanuts intermittently. He is constantly stoking the furnace, ensuring that his blood sugar remains stable and his energetic reserves are never depleted.
It is a remarkable routine, but I can imagine some listeners thinking, okay, that sounds incredibly strict. I don't want to live on green smoothies and cabbage forever. Am I allowed to eat anything else?
It's a valid concern.
And this is where Osman introduces a very practical baseline for his students. He doesn't expect everyone to adopt his extreme master-level diet overnight. He recommends what he calls the 70-30 rule.
The 70-30 rule is a brilliant compromise between strict yogic ideals and the realities of modern human biology.
Break it down for us.
He suggests that a standard plate should be roughly 70% plant-based. That means focusing on those non-starchy vegetables, legumes, and the cabbage base, and 30% animal-based.
Meat is allowed.
Yes. For the animal portion, he specifies unprocessed butcher meats, chicken, or fish. He is very clear that you should avoid heavily processed meats, as they introduce the same toxic inflammation as the GPS carbs.
This flexibility is so important. He acknowledges that dietary needs are highly individual. He notes that while he personally eats a 99% whole foods plant-based diet because he has observed how it specifically benefits his advanced Kundalini state, he doesn't dogmatically force veganism on everyone else.
He is very pragmatic about it.
He states plainly that some people simply thrive on meat, and you must find what works for your unique biological and energetic makeup.
It shows a deep level of maturity in his teaching. He is less concerned with moral purity tests regarding diet and more concerned with biological efficacy.
Results over dogma.
Exactly. If a piece of unprocessed chicken gives your specific body the grounding protein it needs to handle an anxiety-inducing energetic surge, then you should eat the chicken. The goal is to fuel the vehicle so it can handle the journey.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means that if you are feeling the overwhelming stress of the modern world, if you are experiencing that unshakable dissatisfaction despite doing everything right, you might need to reevaluate what is actually happening to you.
You might not be crazy.
If Osman is correct, you aren't broken, you are evolving. But your current diet of convenience, the morning bagel, the lunchtime sandwich, the evening pasta, is actively fighting that evolution.
It changes the entire paradigm of self-care. It moves us away from viewing ourselves as fragile, broken machines that just need to be numbed out, and reframes us as powerful, energetic beings going through a massive, difficult transition.
It gives us back our agency.
And it gives us a tangible, physical way to assist in that transition. We can't always control the demands of our jobs or the amount of screen time our modern lives require, but we can control the fuel we put in our bodies.
Exactly. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's briefly recap the journey we have taken through Osman's teachings. We started by meeting Osman, the blind Muslim yogi, understanding his 50 years of rigorous practice, his master-level capabilities in telepathic bioenergy healing, and his dedication to providing free, accessible spiritual tools to a global audience.
We then explored his truly paradigm-shifting theory of the modern accidental awakening. The idea that our society's obsessive 8 to 12-hour focus on glowing screens is inadvertently mimicking ancient single-pointed meditation, triggering massive involuntary Kundalini awakenings in up to 90% of the population.
That statistic still blows my mind.
We saw how this unprepared energetic surge is the hidden root of our collective anxiety, dissatisfaction, and psychosomatic illnesses.
We then decoded the dietary imperative caused by this awakening. We learned why the modern high-frequency body violently rejects grains, potatoes, and sugar, the GPS rule, due to their massive inflammatory response.
And finally, we discovered the ultimate budget-friendly hack. Utilizing lightly steamed, specifically spiced cabbage as a direct replacement for grains, creating a hyponutritious anti-inflammatory foundation to fuel the fire of human evolution.
And as we close this deep dive, it leaves us with a profound final thought to ponder, one that builds naturally on everything Osman has laid out. If he is right, and our obsessive screen time, this massive global funneling of human attention into glowing rectangles, is actually a modern, clumsy form of single-pointed mindfulness that is triggering mass spiritual evolution.
What happens to humanity when we finally learn to put the screens down?
That is the ultimate question.
What happens when we take that same intense, awakened, Kundalini-fueled focus, and instead of directing it at a social media algorithm or an endless spreadsheet, we direct it outward, toward each other?
Imagine this shift.
What happens if we direct that evolved consciousness toward solving the climate crisis, toward deep interpersonal connection, toward building true community? Our current dietary intolerances, our soaring anxieties, and our collective dissatisfaction simply the uncomfortable growing pains of a species that is clumsily, accidentally, but inevitably stepping into an entirely new phase of global consciousness.
Wow. Are we just in the awkward teenage phase of human evolution, waking up but not quite knowing what to do with the power yet? That is something I want you to chew on, maybe literally, while you are chewing on a plate of perfectly spiced, lightly steamed, crunchy cabbage tonight.
It's definitely food for thought.
I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning what you think you know. Keep learning from multiple perspectives. And maybe, just maybe, look at that humble head of cabbage in the produce aisle with a whole lot more respect. Until next time.